Hey everybody, this is Jiraiya here coming at you with a new video. Today we'll be talking about Star Wars Legacy. Now, spoiler warnings ahead. Again, I don't get too nitty gritty, too deep into the story, but I will give away some, essentially major plot points so that I can kind of let you know where my head's at as far as the story, as far as the series is concerned. Now, for newer Star Wars fans, just keep in mind there's what we call Legends canon and there's what we call Disney canon, right? Think of it as like alternate timelines, right? Essentially, the difference is, what happens after like episode 6, Return of the Jedi, after, like before Disney had bought it, and then what happens in, the Star Wars universe, and then after Disney bought Star Wars, what happens in the Star Wars universe after Return of the Jedi, right? Star Wars Legacy is about 130 years after Return of the Jedi, and it also happens to be Legends canon. So you're probably, and it's unfortunate, but you'll probably never see it on the big screen. I would have loved it. I'm sure a lot of fans still to this day. I have a good friend of mine who was always saying Legends is canon in his heart, and I totally understand, right? But as far as the overall story, right, Star Wars Legacy kind of presents, I wouldn't say it's like a new place that Star Wars has gone to, but it's a lot more visceral in how nitty and gritty and dark, the realm of Star Wars really is, both with the people in it, right, especially in our case, the bigger main characters, as well as the universe, the galaxy around them, right? As much as, there's politics and Jedi, like, realistically, from the Star Wars movies, you get, like, a very just like broad view of what happens in the Star Wars universe. In the Clone Wars, you kind of see a little bit of like what's happening like beneath the surface, so to speak, right? But in Star Wars Legacy, you get the 40,000 foot view, but you also get like, hey, what's happening in the streets. Not so much that that's the focus, but you can see that this is what's happening, this is what things are like, right? With our story, we get essentially two of our most pivotal characters, one being Cade Skywalker, right? He's the youngest descendant of, Luke and Anakin Skywalker, right? And then you have Darth Krayt, who's essentially the big bad, the ruler of the one Sith, right? They're the ones playing, the dichotomy, the duality of, good guy and bad guy. Right, in a sense that one of the things I like about, Cade especially is it's not particularly that I like him as a character, right, but I like how flushed out he is, because essentially, from panel number 1, you see him go through a lot. Essentially, his father dies, defending the Jedi Order from essentially getting Order 66 Part 2, right, the 2.0 of execute Order 66. Lightning hands. But, you see all that happen. He goes down a blaze of glory. Cade's like, no, blah, 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 He tries to do his own blaze of glory, sacrifices himself, and then he gets picked up by pirates. And then we follow up about 10 years later, By that time, he's addicted to death sticks. He's traumatized from the death of his father, the loss of the Jedi Order. He's cut himself off from the Force as much as possible, right? And throughout the story, as it progresses, he teeter-totters on the edge of dark and light, right? And not to say that you don't get to see that in, a lot of Star Wars stories, but to see it for it to be such a visceral image, and for something to happen so consistently, right? Because like normally in a lot of stories you see, character has an up and then a down, up, and with Cade it's up, down, left, right, and sideways, right? His motivation is more often than not it's selfish in nature, but in his mind, like, he's rationalizing as, hey, this is the right thing to do. No, that's the wrong thing to do. I want to do what I want to do, right? He's really battling, as much as he ends up battling the Sith throughout the story, he's battling himself. He's battling his own trauma, his addiction to the death sticks. his own issues, his own demons from, essentially the first book all the way up until the last, right? He has, as much as he's got all the, natural, force affinity and talent that is attributed to most Skywalkers, he also has, the angry streak as well as a unique ability called Shatterpoint, right? He can essentially see the weak points in everything, right? So, like, let's say you had a giant rock in front of you. He would see all the cracks in the rock, like, through the Force, and he could see all the little points of which, hey, I apply the Force and enough pressure here, and the thing shatters, right? In a person, the same thing, right? He can pour the Force into those little shatter points and, kill a person, or he can actually use it to heal them, right? And he can use it mostly throughout the entire series. He uses the dark side in order to heal them, but he eventually learns how to, use the light and love to heal somebody. On the other side of the coin, you have Darth Krayt, who, again, he's the ruler of the one Sith. He's the big bad, right? One of the things I find so interesting about him is he's what you look at when you see, like, how far someone can truly fall. Like, yes, we saw that with Anakin Skywalker, right? And his fall was a lot more calculated in a sense of, like, Sidious essentially groomed him to become, his apprentice in the future, but, he gets chopped into little bitty pieces, and, he becomes Darth Vader. But with Krayt, he was actually a Clone Wars era Jedi Master, right? He actually had ran into Anakin Skywalker on occasion. Order 66 happens. He buggers off. He was actually a Tusken Raider, so he goes back to being a Tusken Raider. He fights Obi-Wan Kenobi because, he's doing Tusken Raider things, and Tusken Raider things aren't usually that nice. Obi-Wan, beats his ass. Obi-Wan says, hey, man, you gotta go, right? And essentially, it turns into this spiral of, him going to Korriban and discovering, ancient Sith secrets and getting captured by the Yuuzhan Vong, who I won't get into super detail about them, but imagine, Force-immune dragon people who look really gross and they really don't like technology. I'll leave it at that for now, because if I get into too much detail, it's going to be an hour-long video, right? But he gets captured by the Vong. They implant some stuff in him. He breaks out. He's like, all right, I'm gonna start the Sith in secret, and they're gonna be one Sith, right? So, previously we'd seen the rule of two, a master and apprentice. I know the master knows all, the apprentice craves all, right? He's like, no, fam. We're gonna do away with that. We're all one. There's a lot of Sith, but we're all one Sith. They all serve me. Now, if I was in the Star Wars universe and, Darth Krayt was asking my opinion, I don't know why he'd ask my opinion, but I'd be like, hey, Darth Krayty, big guy, my man, the last time that happened, all the Sith died because Darth Bane was like, this is kind of stupid. That's not the main point, but, essentially he rewrites, what it means to be a Sith, right? I mean, they're still dark and evil, and they're all tattooed red and black now to show they're all his little cronies, but, realistically, he shows, hey, I was once a Jedi, a pinnacle of the light, and now I've fallen so far as I am now Dark Lord of the Sith, right? And on top of that, the stuff that the Vong implanted him with is slowly killing him over the years. Because mind you, he's been alive for about 130 plus years, so he's slowly dying, right? Obviously, he was made aware of Cade Skywalker and his dark healing power, and his whole end goal is hey, he needs to heal me so that I can fulfill my vision of the one Sith, right? That's essentially the main story, right? I could get nittier and grittier. I've said that 3 times. I don't really care. I'm really excited because I just had so much fun reading this. But as much as it is, this dark story, it's a duality in a different sense because, Darth Krayt is essentially what Cade could have become had he, veered too far off the edge and into the dark side and embraced it completely, right? Because he was this Jedi who, hey, I was the pinnacle of the light. And one of the things I love about Crate is he's kind of like this dude, you could kind of say, is like, man, this guy never gave up on his dreams, you know what I mean? Like, he was like, hey, you know, I'm a Jedi Master. Oh, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go do my own thing. I'm gonna go be a Sith Lord now. And fucking just went after it, right? It took him a while, but, you know, your boy worked hard. He gathered his resources, right? He took the time and planned, and he made his vision a reality. You know, by the end, he's like almost achieving his dream, right? Except, you know, this is Star Wars, and this is a Skywalker story. The Skywalker's got to come out on top. So I'm gonna just say right now is like, yeah, a little bit of plot armor there on behalf of Cade Skywalker, right? But, you know, if you just read this story, right, like, it deals so much in. You get to see that it's not all black and white. It's not all good and bad, dark and light. It's what is, you know, you get to see the shades of gray, right? Because there's a couple times where, you know, Cade is like trying to heal somebody, but he's doing it for selfish reasons, and he's tapping into the dark side to do it. But bringing this person back is also like, you know, why wouldn't you want to bring somebody back from the dead, right? Or from a grievous injury. And, you know, it's not always that easy, right? Like, and then there's the case of, like, sometimes some people don't want to, like, hey, it's like, you know, my time's here, I don't want to be saved. Is it so, like, you know, is it selfish to save them anyway, right? You know, it's not all clear cut, and it's one of the things I love about this story, right? As much as I'm just a huge fan of just pure lightsaber action, baby. I want to see them lightsabers clash. I want to. I turned it on, but I didn't charge it. When I try, it either doesn't turn on or just says you need a little bit more power. Power. But, you know, it's one of those stories where, again, there's shades of gray in just about every little issue they have, right? You know, the only exception being is like, hey, the Sith are evil. Right? There's no gray about the Sith, right? The Jedi, you know, they're always asking, like, hey, should we do this? Is this the right thing to do? Another faction that ends up being like, they're like Jedi adjacent. They're called the Fel Empire. They have Imperial Knights who, you know, they serve the light side through the Emperor as so long as he serves the light side, right? And again, hop into that book, please. I promise you'll have such a good time reading it. You know, but again, like, there's a lot of questions that get asked. There's not really anything new in terms of the Force, right? Like, Shatterpoint getting explored is pretty interesting, but, like, there's, you know, not new crazy Force abilities. There's no, there's nothing new in a sense of, like, the Force being explored in different ways, as opposed to, like, I know I haven't watched it, but, like, I've heard all the things about, like, Sith Acolyte, or, you know, the Acolyte TV show with Disney, and, you know, they're talking about, oh, you can do all this stuff. I'm not going to get into that. That's a different story. We might talk about it a little bit here in a bit, but in essence, you know, it's a story that you can actually kind of relate to, right? Because we all know the Jedi are not infallible, as well as, you know, the Sith, they're not, you know, they're all evil, but they all have their different motivations. They're like degrees of evil. Like, each Sith has, like, kind of something going on. It's not real, like, that in that case, that's where the Sith aren't completely black or black and white. Like, they all want power, but they all want power for, like, different reasons, right? It's like, I want power so I can, you know, impose my will. I want power because, you know, power's sake. I want to do this because I don't want to be anybody's bitch, right? Like, you know, there's one Sith who's like, yeah, bro, I'm just a scientist. I just want to fucking kill people. You know what I mean? But again, it's nice to see it's not just like, yeah, as much as it is dark and light, it's not so clear cut when it comes to, like, the small things that happen in between the big lightsaber battles, and it's very, like, refreshing to, like, go back and read it, because I read it, I'll say, almost like 10 years ago. I was reading Star Wars Legacy for the first time, and it was very refreshing in a sense of, like, yo, like, this is hardcore, you know what I mean? Like, you don't, like, again, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but like you don't get that as much, I feel like, today with Disney. I'm not saying Disney's doing anything so terrible, blah blah blah, but it was nice for, you know, when I read it 10 years ago, Star Wars was essentially over, right? You know, Revenge of the Sith had been released. There was some of the Clone Wars stuff, and it was like, all right, you know, do with all this that we give you with Legends canon as you will, right? And seeing Star Wars Legacy was just like, it solidified me being a Star Wars fan even more, because it's more than just, as much as it is the Skywalker legacy, it's more than just Darth Vader, it's more than just Luke Skywalker, right? It, you know, it creates such a deeper, like a much deeper, much more interesting universe after, you know, the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, all that. So, you know, with all that being said, Star Wars Legacy, 10 out of 10 recommend. As far as the entire story goes, I give it a 9 out of 10, right? That might be my bias. It's my second time reading it, and I was getting super nostalgic feels. So go and take a look at it. I appreciate you guys coming up on this video, watching my content. Once again, I'll be releasing another video tomorrow. I'm going to be watching Alien Romulus, right? So keep on the lookout for that video. Until then, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you. I appreciate it so much.